Hello, welcome to this edition of the Sports Den. My name is Domenic Papa. Congratulations goes out to the Tecumseh Thunder senior baseball team. They are the Can-Am champions for this 2014 season. They now are preparing for the upcoming Ontario Elimination Tournament along with the Windsor Stars. Also, the Windsor Selects finishing up a very successful campaign at the under 16 level as well as the under 18 level. The junior Tecumseh Thunder team, along with the Windsor Selects team with Al Bernacki, getting ready for the upcoming Ontario's. Good luck to both of those squads. Also a shout out to the Essex Ravens as they prepare for their Friday night playoff game with the Mississauga Warriors. Good luck to Glenn Mills and the gang there. And our last stop, Windsor Stars Soccer. They'll be in action tomorrow evening to take on Vaughan in an Ontario Cup game. So hopefully the Stars can get back on the winning track and find a way to advance in the Ontario Cup playdowns. A very good show coming your way tonight. We're going to talk about broadcasting, broadcasters, sports broadcasters. What makes them special? What is important to a viewer? And who are some of the greatest sports broadcasters of all time? We've got a great panel to talk about that. But before we get to the panel, let me plug our sponsor, contributing sponsor here that helps us out each and every week here on the Sports Den. Pizza King, of course, they provide all of our crew meals. Family Days, every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at Pizza King, you get a large 16-piece pizza for the price of a medium pizza. Give the King a ring, 519-944-2201. Thank you to Pizza King for their sponsorship of the Sports Den show. Let's get to the panel now. This young gentleman, he is an aspiring broadcaster. He does some great work with us here at WeTV. He's also done some stuff with the Windsor Lancers athletic program. Mr. Vince Liberti is in the house with us. Welcome to the show, Vince.
Thank you for having me, Dom.
A little bit of off-season for you, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's usually golf course time right now, but yeah.
When you're doing the broadcast stuff, how much prep work is involved with for you?
There's a decent amount. When I first started, I thought it was just like, I take a mic and start talking into it. No, there's a lot more prep work. I'd say at least a couple hours goes into any kind of university game and anything, and then it just escalates from there to.
Do you have a particular sport that you like to broadcast more so than others, perhaps? I know you do a little bit of everything, but is there one sport that?
Hockey's my first love and will always be my true love when it comes to calling an event. But I like keeping my hands in a lot of different pots when it comes to calling games. Keeps you on your toes, right? So
well, you did a good job here so far with WeTV.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate you coming in, and we'll look forward to your comments here tonight. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Also on the panel with us, a very hard-working man for the St. Clair College Saints athletic department. He is the official recruiter for many of the sports programs there, for all of the sports programs there. He's a former basketball coach. Mr. Ken Ambrose joins us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Don.
It's not an off-season for you, is it?
No, never.
I imagine this might be like a 12-month thing, 12-month-a-year thing.
It is. I'm always on the go. Always chasing somebody somewhere.
Mm-hmm. New facility though, that has to be getting rave reviews already, and makes your job, I would imagine, that much easier.
Fantastic. You walk in there with a recruit, and they're just awed by it, and you show them the first class that we have there, and they're just that turns most of them over to what I need.
The toughest part of your job, aside from having that facility to work with, which is a nice thing, but recruiting athletes. What's key in today's recruitment world for getting young athletes to consider St. Clair College?
There's a competition with all the others too. I mean, now that we have the scholarship program, that helps, and of course the Sportplex now helping us. But getting them to come in and see them, they're still coming from high school and they're uncertain of what they want, and there's so many people, I think, variables coming at them that you have to keep plugging with them. But I think that's trying to get them. The competition is.
Well, it's fierce. It's fierce, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you turn that Ambrose charm on a little bit, though.
Once in a while, we try. We try.
Good, right? So,
we try.
Good stuff. Thanks for coming in, Ken. Good luck with the recruiting. Okay?
Thank you.
Our last, but certainly not least guest here this evening. He needs no introduction. Just ask him. He'll tell you that himself. He's legendary in our area for sure. He does many jobs in the broadcasting industry. Has a tremendous voice. Certainly one of the best broadcast partners I've had the chance to work with. Mr. Bill Kelso is with us. Yes, I sucked it up for today to get him in.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Also, it's good to be here, and good to have you here. And I know down the road we're talking about doing some projects together, hopefully through WeTV here. And but I know you still keep on top of a lot of sports, right?
Yeah, as you well know, especially with hockey and actually most sports per se, I'm usually still finally in tune. It never leaves you, shall we say? And you were doing sports broadcasting, it does never leave you. And you sort of follow things certainly from the junior levels on up, and even sometimes even below, and sort of keep my fingers in many pies.
And you, if I remember many years ago, Bill, you actually ventured out to LA, I think.
That was back in the late 80s, early
Yeah.
90s. I did Broadcasters Camp of America, where they taught the 4 major sports of how to broadcast in terms of actual doing play-by-play, interviewing techniques and whatnot. And that was sort of the, for me, the harbinger of things to come.
Well, your play-by-play is amazing, no doubt about that. Your interview techniques suck big time, but that's okay. You got
to work on it, yeah.
Something to work on. That's right. It gives you something to shoot for. So it's all good. But like I said, you're one of the best play-by-play guys. No question about that. But great to have you in the studio with us, Bill. We certainly do appreciate it. If you want to chime into the show, you can tweet us. You can see the Twitter address up on the screen there. Twitter us at SportsDen. Tweet us. Tweet us at SportsDen Live. We'd love to hear from you. If I get a chance, we'll certainly read some of the tweets as the show goes on. So let's get into it, guys. I'm going to put it right out there, though. I want to know from each one of you, actually, broadcasters. I mean, there's been so many great broadcasters, and I know we're maybe somewhat biased because of where we are in the Detroit, Windsor, Michigan area. But favorite broadcasters?
Well, with me, of course, when I went out to LA too, we had some great broadcasters there, but we also had a course in Windsor, the University of Windsor, so back even before the LA course, and people like Ernie Harwell when he was alive, and we had Beckman, Frank Beckman, George Blaha for basketball. So
who's still going?
Who's still going? I thought George Kell was a great baseball announcer, former player. So yeah, it's you get some of these guys that are the local guys, if you will. I like Dickerson that does baseball for the Tigers on radio. It shows a lot of excitement, and he's doing a real nice job too.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm an older soul. I like.
Really?
Yeah, the reason being is because like a lot of people are into the whole like local talent, which is great. For me, one of my biggest is Dick Enberg, who's out with the San Diego Padres right now.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I like about Dick Enberg is that he can call a game, and not necessarily he doesn't really need a second person, but he has that touch on the radio and on a broadcast that leaves you kind of wanting more. And you're like, oh man, there was something about the first time I heard his voice. I was like, wow, there's something there, and you just want to listen more. And the way he tells a story, right? It's special.
Yeah, Dick Enberg, many years with NBC Sports,
yeah.
And I enjoyed calling him as well. Did you try to take his examples and bring it into your own
and
work?
that's one of the things I learned early on was that even as much as I I want to be like Gus Johnson for football, and I want to be like Dick Enberg for baseball, and I want to be like another person for hockey. I was like, I can't be that person. I got to be myself. But there's certain techniques you can pick up from the professionals. And that's one thing you always learn is you're always learning and you're always picking something else up from different people.
I have to rename you Sybil or something with all these different personalities that you've got going.
But Dick Enberg is one of my favorite. But no, there's like another one for football would be Grant Musburger. He's been around for a long time. You think of a name and you just associate him with a sport immediately, right? Because it's been around for so long.
I remember when Brent Musburger left CBS, and he said, I've had the best seat in the house for, it was a gazillion years, but he's obviously back doing some work. He came back, and I think he's losing it a little bit, though. If you watch that one Alabama game when he just kept talking about the quarterback's girlfriend, and he couldn't stop talking about her, I was like, oh, boy, this isn't good. Right. He's going in a bad direction here.
Yeah,
so.
a little too much heat there.
Just a little bit, but good stuff. What about you?
Sitting between two broadcasters and not being a broadcaster, I like somebody who's going to bring a lot of that excitement to the game. The one that comes to mind is like Dick Vitale. I mean, when I watch a basketball game, he gets into the game. And it's not just one team.
Yeah.
He not a favorite. He'll take. He
just loves great basketball.
Oh yeah, and I like that. I like that enthusiasm he's got. The other one is all the sports, and much like Dick Enberg is Jim Nantz. I like the way he calls them too. I mean, he's gets you into the game. He gives you the information you need, and you're never at a loss. And
he has a voice for golf.
Well, he does. He does.
It just has that
But
nice
when he does,
voice.
even though he does a football game, he still has that. He crosses over, and it's got to be a ton of work to get to every sport and get ready.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure he works at it 24/7.
Somebody who's really into the game, like I say, you can talk about a few other. Brent Musburger, he was one that got into the games, and those are the ones that you like to watch. And if you talk about golf, like the David Faraday's and the Gary McCords, who keep you
The characters
tuned in. Well, they do. They have that comedy as well as giving you the information.
Well, sports has got to be fun, no question about it. I've always said that.
It is. And they've got the, you said it, we were talking before about the enthusiasm. These guys have the enthusiasm, but they're there, they want to be there. You know, it's not a job to them, it's a career, it's a livelihood.
No, yeah, and the one thing I've noticed that a lot of people think, oh, once you're in broadcasting, you can broadcast anything, or you can. I noticed you can see the difference between when there's a radio broadcast and there's a TV broadcast, right? And I've learned that myself.
Totally different.
I started on doing stuff on the radio with CJAM at the university, and then you do a lot more stuff with WeTV, and it's like you have a picture telling you a story. You don't have to talk about every minute detail, right? Where radio, you got to talk about everything that's happening at every moment.
You got to paint that picture for sure.
Well, I would say, guys, is radio's work compared to that. TV, I found, and maybe being TV trained, it's a little different than being radio trained. But.
Fair to say, though, Bill, I think with TV you have to be very, very careful that you don't embarrass your viewer.
No, that's true.
You know, like
you really can't dumb it down. You've got to be, you've got to be, forthright, but at the same time, I think, in any broadcast, whether it's radio or TV, guys, I think it's also is the fact is that you need to speak with clarity. Broadcast cadence is what we call it, sort of that smooth, slick. You articulate well, show the. I think those are the keys for a broadcaster can be successful. Guys that you remember the voice, like Al Michaels, great voice. Vin Scully, great voice, because it's that delivery, that smooth. It's almost like that fatherly, type of thing where it's almost guys just watching a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
exactly.
Dick Vitale, I love that call on your part there. The energy that man brought and brings and still does is amazing, and it's almost infectious, actually, to get something like that going. With all that said, I find it interesting, a lot of you guys, the three of you, never really mentioned hockey broadcasters, and obviously coming from this area, we would think that hockey would be front and center, but I love the choices you guys have come up with. Go ahead.
Most hockey broadcasters, they're hockey broadcasters, and there's some great ones all through the years. I mean, Bud Lynch, I remember him sitting there listening, talking about radio. I mean, he was really the guy on the radio. You knew what was going on in that game because he was into the table, and God, when the winning scored, he would go crazy. Yeah, but I don't know why you say that, but it's true. Maybe
I think it's Canada, especially the hockey guys, they don't. Right. In some ways.
I think hockey dominates sports so much in Canada.
In Canada,
but if you look at a guy like Chris Cutt with TSN now, I believe. I mean, he's been broadcasting for a while, but he's done. He's doing the CFL, but he's done hockey over the years, and he's crossed over. Yeah, Olympic hockey. I mean, I think some of those guys.
He used to do it because he used to do baseball aside from hockey as well.
Yeah. Gary Thorne for NBC does the Baltimore Orioles broadcast, and he also does the NBC hockey broadcast. And even back in the day in the 90s, he was doing ESPN with Barry Melrose.
Well, I mean, one of my favorites, and he wasn't mentioned by you guys, and I think I really enjoy watching this guy, and he's been honored with calling some of the biggest games in history of sports, is Joe Buck of Fox. I mean, this guy's done Super Bowls, he's done World Series, and he crosses over those two sports anyways. I don't think I've ever heard him do hockey or basketball or anything like that, but I think he's a phenomenal broadcaster. I think
a lot has to do too with the sport, like the person in the sport. I'm obviously, pro basketball, and I watch, if I had a choice of what's on TV, I'll watch a basketball game, college basketball.
Well, to me, there's nobody else but George Blaha as far as basketball.
Yes,
and I'm biased that way.
But that's right, and you associate with that. I mean, there's some sports I wouldn't watch, and I know there's great announcers, but I would rather not watch that sport as opposed to another one. I mean, when you got all the sports, you have those choices. So one thing I don't like though is I know when you talk about favorite and I'm watching them on TV and I have to listen to the opposing announcers. I'll turn the volume off and turn the radio on and listen to the announcers on the radio because I want to be listening to the pro stuff for the Tigers. I don't want to hear about the other guys knocking them down. He's not that. I know that's a little biased, but. We're raised that way. I mean, you're the consumer in this case, so you have choices, and you're allowed to make those choices. Let me ask this. Every sport is different, I get that, and what would you think is the toughest sport to call? And I know you guys could speak more on experience than Ken can, but just to say, I'm sure Ken has some ideas.
I think the toughest sport to call is baseball. Because with hockey, they're working with a partner. Someone's calling the game in between the whistles, and then outside the whistles, there's someone giving you the information, right? Basketball, same thing. You have different characters. There's something going
There's
on.
more constant action, I guess.
Right, with baseball, there's, until the ball is essentially struck with the bat, there's a lot of dialogue that happens in between, right? And you're talking about a guy that just came up and, he's having a tough year. Or,
There's a lot of film.
There's a lot of film. And I think even for like a young broadcaster like myself, you run. I've talked about everything. What else do you want me to talk about, right? But find a way to just, stretch the material and fill the gaps with, right? So I think for me, it's baseball personally.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say the sport that has, and I didn't pick a sport, that has the lull because you got to do the fill-in time. I would find that hard because you speak in baseball would probably be one sport like that. I don't know, maybe football, but maybe not as much. But yeah, I think you have to fill that time in. That would be good.
For me, I've done all four major sports, if you will, aside from some of the other side sports, if you will. But of the four major sports, for me, I found the toughest was football. Mainly because not only are you looking at the offensive side of the football, you're also looking at the defensive side of the football all at the same time. And the pros have the benefit, and we did when we were doing football games back in the 90s at the University of Windsor, is they've got spotters.
Exactly.
We only had maybe one. They've got three or four spotters. And we're pointing out defensive guys, offensive guys. And baseball, yes, there's a lot of fill, but it's of the four major sports, it's the most static. Because it's every pitch and everything's a new play. So again, it goes back to we talked about before the broadcast on is if you come prepared, regardless what sport you're doing, you should be fine. Baseball, you just have to a little more material because there's a lot of fill.
Right, and the thing though, there's always like a silver lining though, right? Even with when there's a game that's like hockey or basketball or the other major three that are constantly going, it seems like you almost miss material because you don't get to explain yourself, or you don't get to kind of tell a little backstory about baseball. You have the opportunity to give a little background information and to explain where this person came from or how they did it, and maybe where they came from, what made them so special, and then you have the opportunity to voice your opinion and to kind of let the viewers feel like you're part of the broadcast as well, right? Which I think is lost in those other three.
Again, surprised nobody's mentioned golf here as being a tough sport to call. And I understand where you're coming with the baseball thing, where there's a downtime in between the pitches and things like that. And then you've got that 3 or 4 seconds once the ball is struck. You got to call that, and boom, it's done in 3 or 4 seconds. But golf seems to have a lot of downtime as well. And I think it's very important for a broadcaster, again, as you mentioned, Bill, to really have your stuff in place and be able to carry it as you go on through the 18 holes of a golf outing. So interesting that golf wasn't brought up, but I understand where you guys are coming from.
And golf, in terms of myself, for example, because I'm not a golfer, I'm not in love with the game per se, I wouldn't call it golf because we've talked about, again, you've got to have a passion for the sport and a knowledge base. Yeah. I have a bit of a knowledge base because I'm surrounded by it all the time, but in terms of actually calling it, I have zero interest in doing it.
And you see it on the broadcast, you see it a lot where, like, even this person's lining up a shot and he seems like, oh, he's there, oh, he's checking the wind, right? And you're thinking, okay, he's checking the wind, big deal, right? But here's a guy expressing his passion, saying he's checking the wind, he's dialing in, and all of a sudden he's building anticipation, and next thing you know, you're watching intently, and you don't even realize you're doing it, right? So the passion is key, and it plays a large part in how you call any kind of match or event. Or
Well, you've got so many, and I know you watch the background and you got a tower on every hole, and you've got somebody in the background telling them, how many monitors have they got there? They 100 monitors there with 100 different cameras, and calling the shots and saying this, okay, let's go to this one, let's go to this one. I mean, that would make it a little simpler. And you always have action because you're always changing one golfer to the other. So when I watch it on TV, there's always something going on.
Yeah. Okay, Phil has tweeted in. He said, "Kelso, you're king. I miss you. Dom, you're the best wingman. And hats off to both you guys. And Vince, he hopes to see you down the road and watch some of your work. So thanks a lot, Phil. Great tweet. We appreciate that for sure. We don't miss Kelso that much, though, to be honest with you. So nothing changes on it. On that note, we're going to take a timeout here on the Sports Day. When we come to the future of sports broadcast, where is it going? What can be changed to make it even that much better? And also, if we have a little bit of time, we might finish up with a little NFL talk as training camps have opened at the NFL level. That's all coming up here on the Sports Den.
Take one empty field, round up a group of players, add 3 bases, plus 1 home plate, throw in a softball, and add an umpire. Play ball! It's not hard to get a game of softball going and to keep it going from the time you're 4 till you're 84. softball. Get in the game.
Welcome back to the Sports Den. Thanks for sticking around. Domenic Papa with you. Before we get back to our panel, our discussion, again, another shout out to our good friends out at Pizza King who take care of our crew with our meals each and every broadcast. Again, Pizza King, they feature a special every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night. You can get they're going to call it Family Days. You can get a large 16-piece pizza for the price of a medium pizza. I know Bill will be going home and calling Pizza King as soon as he's done here. You can call him at 944-2201-519, of course, in front of that, give the King a ring. Vince Liberti, a broadcaster here with WeTV, is in the studio with us. Also joining us on the set, Ken Ambrose of St. Clair College Saints Athletic Department, and none other than the legendary Bill Kelso with us, joining us for this edition of the Sports Den. Hope you're enjoying it. Left of that, guys, the broadcasting, we talked about individual broadcasters, things like that, but also, you know, we got to give a shout out to the wingmen. Again, you know, while we want a guy that we can listen to the play-by-play and enjoy and really get that feel for the game because of his call, very important, I think, the sidekick in all of this. Fair to say that, guys?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes the broadcast flow, and that's what you look for in a game. The game itself and also the broadcast. And I think if you can get a real good synergy between the broadcasters, and you can tell if broadcasters have known each other for a long time, and a lot for those to get used to each other. Other times it clicks. Like myself and Don, we were such a long time. It was almost second nature. We both knew we were going there prepared. So the broadcast, we knew every night that the broadcast was going to be fine because we both went in there prepared.
Yeah, and it got to the point, I think, I can speak, you know, obviously from experience. I knew when Bill was going to shut down and let me take the floor and vice versa, and when it was his floor, and I think we both respected that and knew that, and it worked. And I don't, you know, a lot of people will use some type of system where they tap each other. Something. Bill and I can tell you, we didn't even tap each other after a while. It was just new. We just knew. It was your time, Bill, to take the floor. Vice versa, Dom, your time to take the floor, and so it worked out really well, and it was a pleasure to work that way. Some of the best wingmen, though, again, it doesn't have to be, and I talk about this because we talk about, you know, athletes that get into coaching and maybe managing professional teams. It doesn't have to be a former player. Can he give that much more insight, do you think?
See, I think that's a default that's a fault that a lot of major companies fall to, and I think that hurts them in the end. Mind you, the player, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of information the player can bring to a broadcast of any type that the common fan wants to know, right? Like what's happening, what really happens inside the huddle. You know, what's really said between the whistles, right? And that player can provide that information. But I think there's a certain individual that has to be chosen when doing that, because you've seen it before, and you see these guests, especially in the playoffs, you go watch TSN or whatever broadcast is on. Right, and they bring on a former player, and they look very uncomfortable, right? And mind you, it takes some time. But yeah, others are just naturals. They feel comfortable in front of a camera, or they like talking to a microphone, and they want to be part of it, right? And you can see them doing that for a long time, right? So I think there's a special individual to choose when you're doing that.
I think this may surprise you guys, and I sort of picked out for each sport. Most impressive guys are an analyst. Number one, they have to be able to articulate. So that's why I like to have a former player. I think goaltenders are excellent hockey analysts if they can articulate. Catchers from baseball, quarterbacks in football, and guards in basketball. I think a particular niche for a particular position because the player involved sees everything. And if they're able to articulate that, you can usually have yourself a pretty good analyst.
They're the ones that are involved in everything, right? Like, if you think about it, they're involved in every play in any of those sports.
They're on the on-field general. Yeah.
And they have their vision. They see everything that's going on, so they can pick up the small things. And those are the things when you're watching a basketball game or a football game or a hockey game, whatever it is. Say, oh, you saw the way he turned his hips here, or he made the one step here and he drove him to the outside here, and it's like all of a sudden you're being educated in what's happening, and you feel that much more part of the podcast.
I prefer the former player because of the education part of it. Like he's been there, he knows the background, he knows everything. And I think of golf, I love Nick Faldo, because he just has this, what he's done. He's won the majors. He's been there. He knows what these guys are, what they're feeling on the course.
And he can communicate it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying articulation.
Yes.
And those guys have to come prepared too. But if they can articulate and because they know the game and they can speak well, boy, oh boy, you get yourself a nice broadcast.
So the future of sports broadcasting, it's changing. It seems like it's changing anyways. I mean, you might just think, well, bottom line is you got to have a play-by-play team no matter what. But there's been experiments where there hasn't been a play-by-play guy. They've gone with silence and just let the action speak for itself. Put the sound effects, the ambiance mics there to make it happen. I don't know, what the results were of that, but it's been experimented with. Where is the future of sports broadcasting going, and where should it go?
I think if anything, there's more opportunity, right? Because before it was limited to, say, certain sports, and you had to find in with a local company, like a broadcast company, or you find your way onto a local broadcast radio station, right? I think now with social media, with Twitter and Facebook, and there's every other internet, every other app, you can call a game, from some small town in the middle of Indiana and broadcast it to thousands of viewers because you have an internet connection, right? And you can get your name out there very quickly. I know when we did the stuff at the university, you did a lot of stuff on the webcasts, right? And that's where I got my start, was webcasts. But people say, "Oh, are you the guy that calls the games?" Yeah, that's me, right? And it's kind of cool to realize that. But I think there's a lot more opportunity. But I still think that it's going to be at least a 2-person system. For me, that's the only way there should be. Even like you see Vin Scully or Dick Enberg do the one-man system, there's a lot of talking and you're still missing. It feels like they're still missing something. Not, mind you, they're fantastic at what they do, but I think a 2-man system is.
I'm old-fashioned. I know the future is coming up, and they've got all this new technology and all this. I like seeing the two guys sit there and talk back and forth about it. And when they tried to, Monday Night Football, we had 3, and it might have been too many voices. I like the 2. I like them, they go back and forth.
I agree with you there, Kevin. And I just think some broadcasts are just getting. I mean, you look at some of the intermission segments now of a telecast, they got 4 or 5 guys on it. It almost becomes overkill in my opinion. It's overkill.
But you and I, Don, we were exposed in the last few years we were doing games. We had a guy, when we had Brian.
Yeah, Brian.
Brian, of course, was right from the bench area. So I felt that was a nice innovation, and I like that.
I don't find that different. If you go down to even hockey, the guy between the 2 boards or between the teams, he's part of the broadcast team, but he's not hogging or doing. He's making some good comments that we
and that's what
know about.
Did that.
That's exactly it. So he's part of the broadcast team, but he's not sitting as during the game.
Split them up now too. They keep the color commentator down on the ice, and they'll put the play-by-play dude up in the stands, and they get 2 different. You want the color commentator to say that he's essentially hearing and seeing right there in the middle of all the action, where the play-by-play is telling you exactly what's happening, right? So
Jay wrote in. He says broadcasters are better than most of the players in the games themselves, and thank God for broadcasters. So, again, a broadcaster can make or break a telecast or a radio broadcast for sure. Well said there, Jay. Quickly, gentlemen, we're running out of time. Women are getting involved with the broadcasting scene now. I think it's a good thing, but again, I worry about some of the women that are coming on board. I mean, there was recently in the playoffs where, and we talked about this before on the Sports Center, Patrick Kane scored an overtime goal, and the one female reporter was in the room in the scrum, and she asked a question, well, is this the biggest goal you ever scored? Well, as we all know, Patrick Kane has scored a few huge overtime goals already in his NHL playoff career, including a Stanley Cup clinching goal. So, again, you have to be leery. And I'm not saying that men will not make those mistakes, but anyway, quickly, 10 seconds each, women involved in the broadcasting of sports.
Best thing that could have happened to sports, hands down. I think personally, if they know the content, they're great for the sport. They have a different dynamic, and they attract a whole different plethora, that whole different audience. Yeah.
I think that we should have more women in there, and there are some out there. I've seen some announcers, on-field announcers, that I think they'd be really good up in the booth.
There are some great female sidelines.
I like that. I like that too, and maybe that's your start. And so I think we should get a few more in there.
Quickly, Bill.
I don't have a problem. We've had some of our broadcasts as well. My feeling is that the competency is if they're as good as the males, all for it.
All right, good stuff, gentlemen. Thanks for everything. Thanks for coming in today. Good luck with everything that you guys are doing. Hopefully, we'll get to check in again and get together and talk some sports. Okay. That's this edition of the Sports Den. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out again next week right here at we-tv.ca, and we'll have another edition live of the Sports Den show for you. This is Domenic Papa wishing you a great night.